Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Bedford, welcome to the Phil Paleologa Show. With updates and breaking news from the WBSM newsroom and on the WBSM app. And your calls and conversation at 508-996-0500. Here he is, New Bedford's #1 talk show host, WBSM's morning mayor, Phil Paleologa.
Kalimera Sas, a beautiful day. Nice of you to join us. It's going to be nice and mild today, and wow, we are having more like spring weather in the middle of, or the end of January, the 27th. Sunny and bright. That's what it's going to be. Let's go right to our phone lines because we have a lot of things backed up because of us being late today. Good morning.
Good morning. I call you back. I tell you about the police.
Oh, okay. You were
growing up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the park policeman that really liked me, and we got along good for years.
Right.
And on the other side was all the houses in the avenue. Well, when we used to have a snowstorm on the avenue, we used to hide behind the hedges and throw snowballs at trucks.
I love it.
Can you believe that? One day. The truck driver had the window open. I hit him right in the face with a snowball.
Oh, my goodness.
And he says, I'll get you guys. There was 3 of us.
And did he?
No, he almost.
Listen.
You know what we did?
What?
We ran up the street. We went into the church. You know where the priest, here's the confessions? We opened the door and we hid inside where the confessions were being held. And I'll never forget it. And I said, we better stay here. That guy's going to get us.
Hey, quick question.
So, we were not, angels, growing up.
Well, I want to know, what did you do? What would you tell the priest in that confessional? Yeah.
Nothing.
You see, it went blank. It went blank. So when the priest would say, all right, my son, cough it up, what would you say?
We say nothing.
Hey, listen.
But that guy was very mad at it. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to tell you.
Wait. You're going to have to wait because I have a whole line of people, but thank you. You know what your call reminded me of is back when, if throwing a snowball at, police or a car was probably one of the big things. And nowadays, compare it. Wow. Caller, I'm going to squeeze you in as well. Good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
Hi.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Phil, I don't know. Have you heard anything from the Mass DEP with what's going on the South Coast with concerning septic systems?
A little, yes. What do you want to know?
No, it's not so much what I want to know. It's what the residents should know and should, hear about.
Right.
If they didn't attend any of the meetings.
Exactly.
That
sure.
It's affecting 2,000 residents in Dartmouth, or possibly affecting 2,000 residents in Dartmouth, 7,000 residents in Westport, along with going all the way up the Cape. But I didn't know if you had anybody on the show or anybody that was talking about it, because it seems like there was no very little transparency from the DEP to the towns and the residents with what it's going to cost them.
Oh my God. So this is the problem. A, you just hit on one of them. B, who's going to pay for all of this new system, and why hasn't anyone talked to us? Well, Marcus was on with Representative Chris Markey the other day. Chris is one of the people who can probably answer every question, but they talked about this. They're going to bring people on to explain what is happening. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is causing a lot of concern, like you said, in Dartmouth and in Westport, because people are going to be told you have to have a new system, and they're going to say, who's going to pay for this $35,000 system? So It's there's a lot of loose ends, but yeah, the representatives locally are on top of this, and they will, of course, tell us more.
Sorry, Phil, but did they also let the callers know that there is an email address that they can send their thoughts to, meaning opposing or being against what the Mass DEP is proposing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know it or not. It's dep.talks, TALKS,
yeah,
at mass.gov.
Okay.
It has to be in there by the 30th because they were trying to pass this in on November. I've been to the meetings. I just did not hear it on the radio station, and I apologize. I probably was not listening, or I was out of the range. I'm glad that somebody was on the radio station, but a lot of the town residents do not know what is actually being proposed by the Mass DEP with a system that is still in a trial basis, that is going to cost them, as you just said, and I think that is on the very low end of $30,000, and then an annual fee between $1,000 and $2,000 to keep the system up and running, with having a nitrogen engineer inspect it every year. There was a lot of items that were not addressed, that were not given by the DEP, other than just trying to pass this new nitrogen system, or IA, septic holding tank.
Right.
So,
I stand right with you in terms of we don't know a lot of the details, partially because they're still putting together, their plans, their programs. Here's what I promise I'll do is get somebody who can answer all of your questions and have a call-in session, because people want to know, is this happening now or when? And there's a lot of questions,
Oh, there's a lot, and along with them looking for a watershed permit, meaning if any of the towns go and agree with a watershed permit, you are now going to be under the thumb of Mass DEP to lower your nitrogen throughout. So all the agricultural entities are exempt, which is fine. They're agriculture, they're farming. I can understand that. We can't hurt them anymore, or nor can we hurt any of the citizens. But what they also did not tell is all the state-owned facilities is exempt. So such as Crapo Field or Crapo Hill, such as Buttonwood Park, that is also leaving nitrogen or leading nitrogen into the Slocum River, into the Westport rivers, along with all the rain that we just received over the last 2 days, 2 inches of rain, and what happens with the wastewater treatment plant in New Bedford that can't hold it all, and millions of gallons goes right out into the bay. There's a lot of things that it's really, really horrible to see what the DEP, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, is doing to the citizens. And everybody's for clean water. It's just what they're doing and hurting the residents, the town people. Millions and millions of dollars would end up going into this that is not going to go back into any of the towns for them to spend any of their money, because everybody's already stretched right now. Never mind the poor older folks that have been living in their homes that
Absolutely.
are there, that may have an older system that no longer would have that. And I can tell you right now, Phil, that new system, which would be a complete system, which was now going to end up being a Title V, is going to be probably closer to $75,000. And what about the poor people that just bought a home today with a septic system?
I'm with you.
It will not pass.
100%. I know it.
I appreciate it, Phil.
Oh, yeah. I want you to come back on and tell us more that you know. How did you find out all about this, other than you're very concerned?
So, again, I didn't know much about it. It was hearsay. And then I got a phone call from a friend, and there was a meeting with the Mass DEP electives at UMass Dartmouth, and that was, I believe it was last Monday. Don't hold me to it. We went there. It was roughly 200 people at UMass Dartmouth that had concerns and questions. And I hate to say it, but it was just a dog and pony show. That Mass DEP officials would just say that they would look into it. They could not give anybody a direct answer. And everybody that had questions and concerns, and there was great speakers there from Barnstable, Westport, Dartmouth, all different areas, along with some of our select board members. Chris Michaud from Dartmouth, who is the head of Board of Health, was there, and he's strongly against this because, again, they just went to go pass this down everybody's throat, and they didn't think anybody would know. So right now there's also, it looks like they're forming some sort of a lawsuit. There has been questions from a lot of the townspeople sending in questions, minutes of the meetings that they've wanted, and Mass DEP has dragged their feet to the point that our town in Dartmouth put a tracker on the check that was sent to them. You have 10 days to respond. They received the check.
Mm-hmm.
However, they just kept it there. 10 days later, on the 10th day, is when they replied.
Yeah.
So they know that they're doing something, to me, it's just not
So
correct.
here's my question. You said that you spoke with your select board members. Anyone else that you reached out to?
Right now, we got Markey that is in with this. I'm sorry, the other senator or state elected person is just...
Senator Mark Montigny?
Montigny, thank you. Yes, Mark Montigny, Markey. We've been sending letters out to a lot of different people, along with Mike Rodericks from Westport, a bunch of different people, along with Mass DEP. Like they all said, send in your letters, we'll look at it, we'll read this. This has been a 25-year ongoing research process that they have been doing with this nitrogen.
Yeah.
And they don't have a system that you can honestly say right now would be the system that will take care of the nitrogen.
Right.
And the other thing about this is they're only looking 14% to reduce or to take care of. 14% is all this is going to take care of if the new IA system does the job it needs to do.
Yeah. Yep. I know that New Bedford and Fall River they have a smaller portion of this, but you're right about your Dartmouth and Westport and others. So listen, here's what because of time, I want you to give me a call back with some more information next week. We're definitely going to have this on the morning show to keep folks at least, appraised of what's going on. And if anyone wants more, we do have stories about, the Title V, which basically says that you have to get an upgrade in your septic system. Regulations for, the watershed regulations. So, oh, my goodness, we have ourselves...
The person to be really on this to come out, but the thing is that, and I'm calling you now on the 27th, however... And because the DEP on the 30th at 5 p.m. is when they close off any more emails or letters being sent to them.
Yeah. Yep.
And the person really would be Chris Michaud, and I'm sure if you were to call the Dartmouth Town Hall or if I was to call and tell him to call in for you, he is a person with more knowledge about this system and what is happening that he could enlighten everybody.
Give him a call. Give Chris Michaud a call and ask him if he can join me in the next half hour.
Do you want to put me on hold and give me a different phone number that he can call into, Phil?
Yeah. Hold on a minute, all right?
Thank you.
All right.
The Bill Paleologus Show.
WBSM has been reporting on this all along, and we're trying to get a hold of Chris right now, Chris Michaud, but he was on with Tim, and we are obviously very concerned about this, as many people are, and we'll definitely have a lot more talk.
Take the Morning Mayor wherever you go. Download the WBSM app.
We have a situation that will be happening in just about 5 minutes down on the waterfront. There's going to be a demolition of that smokestack, and things should stop around 8:30 to 11:30 in the area there where the smokestack is. So please try to stay out of that area because there will be, blockages and detours and all that as the smokestack comes down finally.
The Bill Paleologus Show.
We have news at 8:30, and we will have Chris Michaud on right after your newscast.
Excellent.
All righty. Good morning.
Good morning. Defense attorneys for some of the 5 ex-Memphis police officers involved in the violent arrest of Tyree Nichols say the officers are in shock that they're charged with murder. Nichols, a black man, died in the hospital days after a January 7th traffic stop involving the police officers. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is calling President Biden to the negotiating table over raising the debt ceiling. In a tweet just before Biden delivered a speech on the economy, McCarthy said Biden should set a date to discuss a responsible debt ceiling increase. Conservative Republicans are demanding spending cuts as a price for lifting the debt ceiling and averting a default. A man armed with a Kalashnikov-style rifle has attacked the Azerbaijan embassy in Iran's capital, killing the head of security at the diplomatic post and wounding 2 guards. That's according to Azerbaijan's foreign ministry in a statement Friday. Iran blamed a personal dispute over the attack, though it comes amid heightened tensions between the 2 countries. Tehran's police chief was replaced hours after the assault. Israeli jets struck Gaza overnight Friday after Palestinian militants fired 2 rockets at Israel. There were no casualties in southern Israeli communities near the border with Gaza, the coastal strip controlled by the Islamist movement Hamas. The exchange followed an Israeli raid on a refugee camp in the West Bank on Thursday that killed at least 9 people. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Michael Kastner reports.
The United Nations General Assembly has designated January 27th the anniversary of the Auschwitz death camp liberation in 1945. The UN urges all its member states to honor the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust and millions of other victims of Nazism. Holocaust survivors will take part in a Remembrance Day ceremony at the site of Auschwitz in Poland. I'm Michael Kastner.
The Tanzanian government is ramping up its seizure of livestock from indigenous Maasai herders in the Ngorongoro Conservation Area to clear way for safari tourism and trophy hunting, a report released Thursday said. The update from the Oakland Institute, a U.S.-based environmental think tank, found that the government forcefully confiscated some 5,880 cattle and 767 goats and sheep from the Maasai in November and December last year. Former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi isn't sure if she's going to watch upcoming body camera footage from the attack on her husband last year. Paul Pelosi was beaten in the couple's San Francisco home in October when a man broke in and hit him repeatedly with a hammer. The footage from an officer who responded to the brutal attack is expected to be released today. And a nun is being praised for stopping a robbery attempt at a Western New York poverty center. Trey Thomas reports.
Sister Mary Janice is the director of the Response to Love Center in Buffalo, which provides food, care, and other services to the needy. She heard a noise outside and saw a stepladder out of place. One robber fled while the other was forced to jump off the roof after she threw the ladder down. She told him, "This is God's property. Get out." And he did. I'm Trey Thomas.
In sports, 2 losses for Boston last night. The Bruins lost to Tampa Bay. They'll go for a win against the Florida Panthers Saturday at 6. And the Celtics, who lost to the New York Knicks, face the LA Lakers Saturday at 8:30. Now for a look at your local forecast from ABC6.
99% sunshine today. Temperatures rising through the 30s this morning. We top off at 40 degrees this afternoon with a light wind. Tonight we fall back to near 30 again under a mostly clear sky, and we're near 45 on your Saturday. So keep those sunglasses handy. From the ABC6 Weather Center, I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist Nick Morganelli on New Bedford's News Talk Station, 1420 WBSM.
Right now it is 33 degrees and sunny. I'm Kate Robinson for WBSM News. Stay up to date with WBSM, New Bedford's News Talk Station, and get breaking news alerts with the WBSM app.
Kate, thank you very much. Maybe you want to just stay there as we welcome Chris Michaud, who is, Chris, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And are you the head of the health department?
I am the Director of Public Health for the town of Dartmouth.
Okay. Chris, this has been a problem. Dartmouth lawmakers are also raising these concerns about the septic changes. What can you tell us this morning?
Well, just to kind of give you a really brief step back, the state is proposing changes to those regulations that govern the installation maintenance of on-site septic systems. So if you're not connected to a sewer system and you live in the town of Dartmouth, as well as other coastal towns, these proposed regulations are something that you should be looking at. We've taken a close look at these regulations, and to simply describe them, they are going to require one of two things. They are going to require all septic systems in watersheds that drain to impacted embayments that have been studied and shown to have excess levels of nitrogen in them, to have those systems upgraded within 5 years of certain trigger mechanisms within this proposed regulation. So the town of Dartmouth, that means we've got about 2,000 or so homes that will be impacted between the two watersheds that have already been studied. And they're going to require them to install septic systems that don't yet exist, and that the state is hastily pushing towards a rapid promulgation of these proposals that we have before us.
Okay.
They're also telling us that, well, you don't necessarily have to do the 5-year. You can spare your residents of that burden, and that you can go for a watershed permit and more holistically control nitrogen. Well, that means that, we're going to go after other sources of nitrogen in an attempt to try to save this expense that's going to fall upon these 2,000 or so households. But what we've seen is that the department hasn't been, truthful with the full implications of the watershed permits that were put in place to try to allegedly put in place to try to spare people from this burden. Because in many instances, trying to let me just back up a little bit. How do you manage nitrogen? Well, nitrogen is going to be in fertilizers. It falls in rain. It sheds off impervious parking lots, rooftops.
Sure.
Goes into storm drains, goes into our bay, goes into the groundwater. It comes from, agricultural activities. It comes from composting activities, and, a few other sources. So when it all comes back to it, what's the easiest thing to go after? Well, we can't go after agriculture. We can't go after fertilizer because there's existing laws and regulations in place that prevent towns here, at least that I'm aware of in southeastern Mass, from doing such.
And
out on the Cape, it might be a little different because they had pre-existing regulations on fertilizer in some instances before the legislature passed the law around 2012.
Are they clumping Dartmouth and Cape Cod? Is this one, area? Chris?
So these regulations are targeting Cape Cod, the islands, and southeastern Massachusetts.
Okay. All righty.
And the problem when we start looking at holistically controlling nitrogen, you'll see in our letter that'll probably be available, late today or on Monday, that 40 to 60% of the controllable nitrogen in the two impaired watersheds in Dartmouth is controlled by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So how is a town to enter into a watershed permit to control what it only controls part of? And when we look at the Slocum's River watershed, we only control 40% of the controllable nitrogen as a municipality. And we know that septic systems are only 14 or 12, I forget what the number is, too many numbers, somewhere between 12 and 14% of the total nitrogen load. So this always comes back to wastewater. So if we enter into a watershed permit, there's going to be a component of, do we try to bring sewer to households? Well, our wastewater treatment plant doesn't have the capacity for those outlying areas.
I was wondering, yeah.
Or do we require these systems that we were trying to spare you from in the first place? And then it gets even more troublesome because we have to, when you enter into these permits, you have to get the numbers down. It's not like this is watershed planning. This is permitting, and we're being held to a hard metric to perform. And if we don't perform, we can undertake everything that we thought would be great and we would do right. Just like that happened here in Dartmouth. Dartmouth was ahead of the curve in the 1990s and early 2000s under the administration at that time. They were extraordinary with their environmental focus, with land protection, with miles upon miles of sewer, millions upon millions of dollars of sewer extensions, land preservation, stormwater regulations, all those things that we would look to do had we not done them.
Wow. Let me ask you, has the Department of Environmental Protection been forthcoming with this information before now? Because it's kind of like playing catch-up for me. I'm saying, wow, I didn't hear this from DEP. Has there been a breakdown in communication?
Absolutely. It all started. And when we start walking back, the first we heard of these regulations was on May 27th when I received the phone call on May 27th, 2022, from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection announcing of these proposed changes. And they said, don't worry, we're going to meet with you, and we're going to talk about these proposals. And they met with us on August 24th. And on August 24th, they told us there's going to be a 5-year plan and there's a watershed plan. And they're going around right now patting themselves on the back, once more trying to spin their issues on the towns, saying, but we had 50 meetings and we met with the towns to try to solicit comment. No, when they met with us, they already told us what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a stakeholder roundtable discussion.
Yeah.
That was, this is what we're doing. And what's even more deeply concerning is, let's jump back to May 27th. On May 27th, the stay order was recorded at the Barnstable County Superior Court, suspending the lawsuit between Mass DEP and the Conservation Law Foundation. And in that stay order, it outlined timeframes that had to be undertaken by the Mass DEP. It said that they had to announce their rulemaking process between May and September. Well, they did that. They did that by calling us. On June 1st, Commissioner Suberg wrote a letter saying that he was going to be changing the code because Mass DEP just learned that nitrogen is a big problem when they knew about it going back to the 90s.
Sure.
And then they met with us on August 24th, 2022. So, item on page 3 of the stay order, paragraph 4, item A, they accomplished that they would publish draft regulations for public comment in October 2022. Well, they did that on October 28th, 2022. And then item C, that they would promulgate or pass the regulations by January 2023. So this is nothing more than a ram it down your throat approach from a very disingenuous Commissioner Suberg. Because
Chris,
right.
Hold on a half a second, please. Kate.
Hi, Chris. Great to hear from you.
Kate Robinson.
Hello.
Hey,
So I just wanted to kind of quickly bring everyone up to speed as to what's happening right now. So the DEP just held some public meetings for everyone to kind of have their input. But at the same time, we've got new legislation coming from Mark Montigny and Christopher Markey kind of demanding that the government say where these costs are going to come from. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay, and so let's talk about the costs.
Mm-hmm. First of all, the costs seem like nuts. Who in their right mind could afford $40,000-$50,000? Are they in their right minds, Chris? Or that's how I would feel, Kate. Chris?
Yeah, and I stopped talking about money. I realized that was one of my errors early on, is that these systems don't exist yet.
Oh.
And with inflation continuing to run up prices, I don't want to talk about what this is going to cost anymore, because if hey, if it's 30, and it's not 50, but hey, what if it's 60? We don't know, because they've said it. These systems don't exist yet. And when they do, there's going to be such an extraordinary demand on them. Then what's going to happen? Supply demand equals price increases again. Just be prepared, hang on tight.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then the
can
other
we-
alternative becomes, well, what about sewer? Well, when you take a town like Dartmouth, where our plant doesn't have capacity, and you would have to, put miles and miles of sewer, you'd have to build out a plant, add miles of extension.
Oh boy.
I'm beginning to kind of feel like that's going to probably be a bit of a difficult proposition as well, because who pays for that? The taxpayer.
Of course. Wow. So this is all mandatory too, huh, Chris?
If this, it seems like it by that stay order that I was reading to you, this was just a check mark of due process. They did not really, they had to do this, but it was a dog and pony show.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do it, but they have to.
Yeah. So Mark and Chris are now putting together legislation that at least would be on our side, right?
It is great to see that Representative Markey and Senator Montigny have filed that bill, recognizing the extraordinary burden that this is going to put on property owners.
Absolutely.
And that, if that bill, was to pass, then, it would provide some relief. It is a bill at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. What in the last 5 minutes can you tell us are the most important things for people to keep in mind? And then we'll have you come back and explain this more next week and the weeks ahead. But what's your final word on all that's going on, Chris?
So while Mass DEP tried to, fleece the public, you do have an opportunity. Email dep.talks@mass.gov. You can find that on the Town of Dartmouth website for the Board of Health. If you have any trouble, give us a call. Also, email your elected officials. I know Representative Markey and Montigny are getting emails, but if you live in another area and you're concerned about this, you should be emailing your elected officials. They need to know. And even though the comment period closes next week on Monday, January 30th at 5 p.m., keep contacting Mass DEP and the Governor's Constituency Hotline. This is not, this timeline might be a regulatory timeline, but your voices to elected officials, if you're outside of the area of Rep. Markey and Senator Montigny, should be heard. The Governor's Constituency Hotline at 888-870-7770 should be called, and you should ask for updates. And if they can't, call back and ask again. This is the most significant regulatory undertaking we have ever seen. I have not seen anyone say they want a worse environment. Everyone realizes that their town is the equity in their home, but this can be done better.
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm just going insane trying to think of the older folks who are on fixed incomes and others. This is absolutely insane. So, wow. I'm going to take a quick break. Can you hold on for a few more minutes and we'll end up the show with you? Chris Michaud is joining us, who's the Director of Health Services in Dartmouth, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
What's happening this week on
the Director of Health Services in Dartmouth, and apparently many of us, thousands of us, are facing these mandatory septic system upgrades that could cost anywhere up to $50,000. And from what I'm getting from your conversation, there is a huge lack of, shall we call it, transparency, Chris? A huge lack of that going on. Otherwise, we would have had more information. Agreed?
Absolutely. And, we did file an open meeting law complaint last week, and irrespective of that issue, there is a structural issue because the Mass DEP is regulated in the manner in which they must undertake these subcommittees, and that is right in the same set of regulations, and we know that they didn't follow that.
Yeah.
So this is a lot like a young child that doesn't realize that, the minute that they stop misbehaving, everything that gets better. They're continuing to dig themselves into a deeper hole with not producing records, being ordered now by the Secretary of State because they're even unresponsive to the Secretary of State's office.
Yep.
You know, an open meeting law violation. And they're all going to probably justify this on the order at Barnstable County Superior Court. There is no judge that's going to say the ends, justify the means.
Right.
And you can sidestep all of these other obligations to the public.
Well, Chris, I'm picking up also, are you saying that the science that DEP is using is flawed?
I'm saying that their obligations for public transparency are deeply flawed. As far as the strategy and the regulations, I'm not even talking about that anymore. There are significant concerns with the costs and the implications of that. But we've got these defects in the process in which occurred leading up to this that require them to go back to the drawing board and do it over again, to allow the public to participate and to also have access to these public records, which are public. They are a defiant state agency, and this needs to stop. And I'm sure they're very angry at me for saying all this. Well, if they would just stop the defiant behavior and start serving the constituency as they're required to do, as I am as a public official, then we could stop moving forward to serve our constituents and the environment.
And what you're saying is Representative Markey and Senator Montigny are on top of this so that more transparency can occur. So two things. One is you have no idea how very important this was. I want to thank Ken for calling in also. Monday, are you busy on the 30th? Monday, because I'd like to have you come back on the morning show because a lot of people tune in, Chris, and I think it would be very beneficial to you pick the time. I'll
yeah, I can be. Yes, I can be. If you could just send me an email, or have Kate send me an email, just so I can get into my schedule.
Absolutely. We'll do that. And lastly, we have 2 minutes here. Give us your final thoughts on all that's going on here on the mandatory septic system upgrades. Crazy here.
Yeah, well, we've talked to hundreds of people. We've listened to people speak very passionately about this, and I have not heard a single person yet say that they want a worse environment. What they want is a means by which we can accomplish something.
Yes.
And move the needle, but
reasonably,
though, destroy us financially. And that the people are realizing that this isn't, let's not do the watershed permit. Let's talk about the implications of the watershed permit. Because if you go into anything with just this is my goal in mind and you don't evaluate for unintended consequences, woulda, coulda, shoulda is too late.
Right. Is there a place that everyday citizens can just catch up on how this started, where it's at?
Our website, if you go to the Town of Dartmouth website, then you go to departments, and there's a drop down and you'll see health. Click on that. When you get onto the health page, there's a blue column on the left, and there's all these different links. Click on Mass DEP Title V changes. That web page is the web page where we are uploading information, where we will be uploading the town's response comments either later today or on Monday. And it is a voluminous response. And, please, if there's some small typos in there, when you write 40 pages as you're trying to do other things, there might be some things that we might have missed as errors. But this is the response letter from the town of Dartmouth to Mass DEP on their concerns and their practices with the management of nitrogen down here on the South Coast.
I can see all of the communities getting behind this and pushing forward, and huge thanks for the Senator and Representative
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.